Alright, hey Fan Gang! Hope you had a fantastic Thursday. Today we are reading more Dracula. Let's hop on over. Put on my reading glasses. Switch the music over. Okay, let's hop on right into it. I'm still feeling pretty rough from my flu vaccine, so we'll see if I last the full hour. But I just took Tylenol and got my throat lozenge, so I'm pretty good for now. And I got my delicious green tea with honey. Last time we left off with the good Dr. Van Helsing with Dr. Seward attending to Lucy, who is on her deathbed from lack of blood, with her blood being sucked out by, I was about to say Dr. Acula because of a Scrubs reference. No, it's just Dracula, not Dr. Acula. That's a really old reference. But yes, we left off in the middle of them, yes, that's right. They were about to give her some medicine to help her not be aware that her fiance, John, is that his name? Is about to help with the blood transfusion to save her life. So now, this is chapter... What chapter is this? 10? 158. Yeah, we're in chapter 10. Chapter 10 of Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now, little miss, here is your medicine. Drink it off like a good child. See, I lift you so that to swallow it is easy. Yes, she had made the effort with success. I think that's Dr. Van Helsing doing that. It astonished me, Dr. Seward this is his diary passage. It astonished me how long the drug took to act. This, in fact, marked the extent of her weakness. The time seemed endless until sleep began to flicker in her eyelids. At last, however, the narcotics began to manifest its potency, and she fell into a deep sleep. When the professor, I almost said Dr. Acula again. When the professor was satisfied, he called Arthur into the room and bade him strip off his coat. Arthur, not John, that's the fiance. Then he added, "You may take that one little kiss, whilst I bring over the table. Friend John, help me." John must be Dr. Seward then. Okay. Remembering these characters. So neither of us looked whilst he bent over her. I mean, that's probably a good thing, considering this was 19th century, and ye old IV for blood transfusion would not be pretty. Van Helsing, turning to me, said, "He is so young and strong, and of blood so pure, that we need not defibrinate it. I assume that means to desalinate it? Like a brine? I don't know what the phi would mean in that. I have no idea. Then, with swiftness, but with absolute method, Van Helsing performed the operation. As the transfusion went on, something like life seemed to come back to poor Lucy's cheeks. And through Arthur's growing pallor, the joy of his face seemed absolutely to shine. After a bit, I began to grow anxious, for the loss of blood was telling on Arthur, strong man as he was. It gave me an idea of what a terrible strain Lucy's system must have undergone, that what weakened Arthur only partially restored her. But the professor's face was set, and he stood watch in hand, with his eyes fixed now on the patient and now on Arthur. I could hear my own heart beat. Presently, he said in a soft voice, "Do not stir an instant. It is enough. You attend him. I will look to her." When all was over, I could see how much Arthur was weakened. I dressed the wound and took his arm to bring him away. When Van Helsing spoke without turning round, the man seems to have eyes in the back of his head. The brave lover, I think. deserve another kiss, which he shall have presently. And as he had now finished his operation, he adjusted the pillow to the patient's head. As he did, so the narrow black velvet band, which he seems always to wear around her throat, buckled with an old diamond buckle, which her lover had given her, was dragged up a little bit and showed a red mark on her throat. Arthur did not notice it, but could hear the deep hiss of indrawn breath, which is one of Van Helsing's ways of betraying emotion. He said nothing at the moment, but turned to me, saying, "Now, take down our brave young lover, give him the port of wine, and let him lie down a while. He must then go home and rest, sleep much, and eat much. Don't forget to give him the orange juice. That he may be recruited of what he has so given to his love. He must not stay here. Hold a moment. I may take it, sir, that you are anxious of is in the wrong place, threw me off. Anxious of result. Then bring it with you that in all ways the operation is successful. You have saved her life this time, and you can go home and rest easy in mind that all that can be is. In mind that all that can be is. Helsing has a way with words, and I don't think it's a good one. To be honest, guys. I shall tell her when she is well. She shall love you none the less for what you have done. Goodbye. When Arthur had gone, I went back to the room. Lucy was sleeping gently, but her breathing was stronger. I could see the counterpane moving as her breast heaved. By the bedside sat Van Helsing, looking at her intensely. The velvet band again covered the red mark. I asked the professor in a whisper, "What do you make of that mark on her throat?" "What do you make of it?" "I have not examined it yet," I answered, and then and there proceeded to loose the band. Just over the external jugular vein, there were 2 punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. There is no sign of disease, but the edges were white and worn looking, as if by some trituration, whatever that means. Very good tea today. It at once occurred to me that this wound, or whatever it was, might be the means of that manifest loss of blood, but I abandoned the idea as soon as formed, for such a thing could not be. The whole bed would have been drenched to a scarlet with the blood which the girl must have lost to leave such a pallor as she had before the transfusion. "Well," said Van Helsing. "Well," said I can make nothing of it." The professor stood up. "I must go back to Amsterdam tonight," he said. "There are books and things there which I want. You must remain here all night, and you must not let your sight pass from her." "Shall I have a nurse?" I asked. We are the best nurses, you and I. You keep watch all night. See that she is well fed, and that nothing disturbs her. You must not sleep all the night. Later on, we can sleep, you and I. I shall be back as soon as possible, and then we may begin." "May begin?" I said. "What on earth do you mean?" "We shall see," he answered as he hurried out. He came back a moment later and put his head inside the door and said with a warning finger held up, "Remember, she is your charge, and if you leave her and harm befall, you shall not sleep easy hereafter." Cheeky bastard. Dr. Seward's diary continued on the 8th of September. Was that on the 8th too? 6. Okay. Now we're on the 8th. Here we go. I sat up all night with Lucy. The opiate worked itself off towards dusk, and she waked naturally. She looked a different being from what she had been before the operation. Her spirits, even, were good, and she was full of a happy vivacity. But I could see evidences of the absolute prostration which she had undergone. When I told Mrs. Westenra that Dr. Van Helsing had directed that I should sit up with her, she almost pooh-poohed the idea, pointing out her daughter's renewed strength and excellent spirits. I was firm, however, and made preparations for my long vigil. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in. I assume Mrs. Westenra was prepared for the night, like dressing her like old-fashioned folk did. I guess. Having in the meantime had supper, and took a seat by the bedside, she did not in any way make objection, but looked at me gratefully whenever I caught her eye. After a long spell, she seemed sinking off to sleep, but with an effort seemed to pull herself together and shook it off. This was repeated several times, with greater effort and with shorter pauses as the time moved on. It was apparent that she did not want to sleep, so I tackled the subject at once. You do not want to go to sleep? No, I am afraid. Afraid to go to sleep? Why so? It is the boon we all crave for. Ah, not if you were like me, if sleep was to you a presage of horror. A presage of horror? What on earth do you mean? Take it easy, Snake, repeating all the questions. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. And that is what is so terrible. All this weakness comes to me in sleep, until I dread the very thought. But, my dear girl, you may sleep tonight. I am here watching you, and I can promise that nothing will happen. I can trust you. I seized the opportunity and said, I promise you that if I see any evidence of bad dreams, I will wake you at once. You will really. Will you really? Awkward word placement. How good you are to me. Then I will sleep. Well, that was easy. And almost at the word, she gave a deep sigh of relief and sank back, asleep. All night long I watched her. She never stirred, but slept on in a deep, tranquil, life-giving, health-giving sleep. Her lips were slightly parted, and her breast rose and fell with the regularity of a pendulum. There was a smile on her face, and it was evident that no bad dreams had come to disturb her peace of mind. In the early morning, her maid came, and I left her in her care and took myself back home, for I was anxious about many things. I sent a short wire to Van Helsing and to Arthur, telling them of the excellent result of the operation. My own work, with its manifold arrears, took me all day to clear off. It was dark when I was able to inquire about my zoophagous patient. That was Renfield. The report was good. He had been quite quiet for the past day and night. A telegram came from Van Helsing at Amsterdam whilst I was at dinner, suggesting that I should be at Hillinghamn tonight, as it might be well to be at hand, and stating that he was leaving by the night mail and would join me early in the morning. The 9th of September. I was pretty tired and worn out when I got to Hillinghamn. For 2 nights, I had hardly a wink of sleep, and my brain was beginning to feel that numbness which marks cerebral exhaustion. Lucy was up in cheerful spirits. When she shook hands with me, she looked sharply in my face and said, "No sitting up tonight for you. You are worn out. I am quite well again. Indeed I am. If there is to be any sitting up, it is I who will sit up with you." I would not argue the point, but went and had my supper. Lucy came with me, and enlivened by her charming presence, I made an excellent meal and had a couple of glasses of the more than excellent port. Then Lucy took me upstairs and showed me a room next to her own, where a cozy fire was burning. "Now," she said, "you must stay here. I shall leave this door open, and my door too. You can lie on the sofa, for I know that nothing would induce any of you doctors to go to bed whilst there is a patient above the horizon. If I want anything, I shall call out. You can come to me at once. I could not but acquiesce, for I was dog-tired, and could not have sat up had I tried. So, on her renewing her promise to call me if she should want anything, I lay on the sofa and forgot all about everything. I have a feeling this isn't going to end well for Lucy. Lucy Westenra's diary. On the same day? Same day. 9th of September. Guess she's writing this after tucking in Dr. Seward. John Stewart. I feel so happy tonight. I have been so miserably weak that to be able to think and move about is like feeling sunshine after a long spell of east wind out of a steel sky. That's certainly a description. I'm not sure what that means, but it's describing something. Okay. Somehow, Arthur feels very, very close to me. I seem to feel his presence warm about me. I suppose it is that sickness and weakness are selfish things and turn our inner eyes and sympathy on ourselves. Whilst health and strength give love reign, and in thought and feeling he can wander where he wills. I know where my thoughts are. If Arthur only knew. My dear, your ears must tingle as you sleep, as mine do waking. Oh, the blissful rest of last night. How I slept with that dear, good Dr. Seward watching me. A little weird. And tonight, I shall not fear asleep, since he is close at hand and within call. Thank everybody for being so good to me. Thank God. Good night, Arthur. Dr. Seward's diary on the next day, the 10th of September. I was conscious of the professor's hand on my head and started awake all in a second. That is one of the things that we learn in an asylum at any rate. And how is our patient? Well, when I left her, or rather when she left me, I answered. Come, let us see, he said, and together we went into the room. The blind was drawn, but down. The blind was down, and I went over to raise it gently, whilst Van Helsing stepped with his soft, cat-like tread over to the bed. As I raised the blind and the morning sunlight flooded the room, I heard the professor's low hiss of inspiration, and knowing its rarity, a deadly fear shot through my heart. As I passed over, he moved back, and his exclamation of horror, Gott in Himmel, needed no enforcement from his agonized face. He raised his hand and pointed to the bed, and his iron face was drawn in ashen white. I felt my knees begin to tremble. There, on the bed, seemingly in swoon, lay poor Lucy, more horribly white and wan-looking than ever. Even the lips were white, and the gums seemed to have shrunken back from the teeth, as we sometimes see in a corpse after a prolonged illness. Van Helsing raised his foot to stamps in anger, but the instinct of his life and all the long years of habit stood to him, and he put it down again softly. Quick, he said, bring the brandy. I flew to the dining room and returned with a decanter. He wetted the poor white lips with it, and together we rubbed palm and wrist and heart. We felt her heart, and after a few moments of agonizing suspense said, It is not too late. It beats, though but feebly. All our work is undone. We must begin again. There is no young Arthur here now. I have to call on you yourself this time, friend John. As he spoke, he was dipping into his bag and producing the instruments for a transfusion. I had taken off my coat and rolled up my shirt sleeve. There is no possibility of an opiate. Yeah, that's right. Just at present. And no need of one. And so, without a moment's delay, we began the operation. After a time, it did not seem a short time either, for the draining away of one's blood, no matter how willingly it be given, is a terrible feeling. Van Helsing held up a warning finger. "Do not stir," he said, "but I fear that with growing strength she may wake. That would make danger. Oh, so much danger. But I shall precaution take. I shall give hypodermic injection of morphia." He proceeded then, swiftly and deftly, to carry out his intent. The effect on Lucy was not bad, for the faint seemed to merge suddenly into that narcotic sleep. It was with a feeling of personal pride that I could see a faint tinge of color steal back into the pallid cheeks and lips. No man knows, till he experiences it, what it is to feel his own lifeblood drawn away into the veins of the woman he loves. The professor watched me critically. "That will do," he said. "Already?" I remonstrated. "You took a great deal more from art." To which he smiled a sad sort of smile as he replied, "He is her lover, her fiancé. You have work, much work, to do for her and for others, and the present will suffice." When we stopped the operation, he attended Lucy, whilst I applied digital pressure to my own incision. I laid down whilst I waited his leisure to attend to me, for I felt faint and a little sick. I felt that too. It was the year before last I wound up in the ER for something that turned out to be nothing. And I got stuck up like a goddamn pig there in the ER by the nurse who just couldn't get the damn IV in me. It was terrible. So I know that feeling of being sick from blood drawn badly. Not that I had much. By and by, he bound up my wound and sent me downstairs to get a glass of wine for myself. Well, I don't think that's a good idea after you just gave blood. Okay. As I was leaving the room, he came after me and half whispered, "Mind, nothing must be said of this. If our young lover should turn up unexpected, as before, no word to him. It would at once frighten him and then jealous him too. There must be none. So," when I came back, he looked at me carefully and then said, "You are not much the worse. Go into the room and lie on your sofa and rest a while. Then have much breakfast and come here to me." I followed his orders, for I knew how right and wise they were. I had done my part, and now my next duty was to keep up my strength. I felt very weak, and in the weakness, lost something of the amazement at what had occurred. I fell asleep on the sofa, however, wondering over and over again how Lucy had made such a retrograde movement, and how she could have been drained of so much blood with no sign anywhere to show for it. I think I must have continued my wonder in my dreams, for, sleeping and waking, my thoughts always came back to the little punctures in her throat and the ragged, exhausted appearance of their edges, tiny though they were. That flu vaccine is kicking my ass this week. Lucy slept well into the day, and when she woke, she was fairly well and strong, but not nearly so much as the day before. When Van Helsing had seen her, he went out for a walk, leaving me in charge, with strict injunctions that I was not to leave her for a moment. I could hear his voice in the hall, asking the way to the nearest telegraph office. Lucy chatted with me freely. I seemed quite unconscious that anything had happened. I tried to keep her amused and interested. When her mother came up to see her, she did not seem to notice any change whatever, but said to me gratefully, "We owe you so much, Dr. Seward, for all you have done, but you really must now take care not to overwork yourself. You are looking pale yourself. You want a wife to nurse and look after you, but that you do." That is an unintentional sick burn that she just gave him. As she spoke, Lucy turned crimson, though it was only momentarily. Her poor, wasted veins could not stand for long such an unwanted drain to the head. The reaction came in excessive pallor. as she turned imploring eyes on me. Excuse me. I smiled and nodded and laid my finger on my lips. With a sigh, she sank back amid her pillows. Van Helsing returned in a couple of hours and presently said to me, "Now you go home and eat much and drink enough. Make yourself strong. I stay here tonight, and I shall sit up with the little miss myself. You and I must watch the case, and we must have none. I don't know why Van Helsing throws me off so much when he talks. And we must have none other to know. I have grave reasons. No, do not ask them. Think what you will. Do not fear to think even the most not probable. Good night." In the hall, two of the maids came to me and asked if they or either of them might not sit up with Miss Lucy. They implored me to let them, and when I said it was Dr. Van Helsing's wish that either he or I should sit up, they asked me quite piteously to intercede with the foreign gentleman. That's a nice way of saying it. I was much touched by their kindness. Perhaps it is because I am weak at present, and perhaps because it was on Lucy's account that their devotion was manifested. For over and over again have I seen similar instances of woman's kindness. I got back here in time for a late dinner, went my rounds, all well, and set this down whilst waiting for sleep. It is coming. The 11th of September. This afternoon, I went over to Hillingham, found Van Helsing in excellent spirits, and Lucy much better. Shortly after I had arrived, a big parcel from abroad came for the professor. He opened it with much impressment, assumed of course, and showed a great bundle of white flowers. "These are for you, Miss Lucy," he said. "For me? Oh, Dr. Van Helsing." "Yes, my dear, but not for you to play with. These are medicines." Here, Lucy made a wry face. "Nay, but they are not to take in a decoction or a nauseous form, so you need not snub that so charming nose, or I shall point out to my friend Arthur what woes he may have to endure in seeing so much beauty that he loves so much to distort. Aha, my pretty miss, that brings the so nice nose all straight again. This is medicinal, but you do not know how. I put him in your window. I make a pretty wreath, and hang him round your neck so that you sleep well. Oh yes, they, like the lotus flower, make your trouble forgotten. It smell so like the waters of Lethe, and of that fountain of youth that the conquistador sought for in the Floridas, and find him all too late. Is this garlic? I can't have it, but I love garlic. Sometimes it's worth a bite. Whilst he was speaking, Lucy had been examining the flowers and smelling them. Now, she threw them down, saying with half laughter and half disgust, "Oh, Professor, I believe you're only putting up a joke on me. Why, these flowers only, call it common garlic." To my surprise, Van Helsing rose up and said with all his sternness, his iron jaw set, and his bushy eyebrows meeting, "No trifling with me, I never jest. There's a grim purpose in all I do, and I warn you that you do not thwart me. Take care for the sake of others, if not for your own." Then, seeing poor Lucy scared, as she might well be, he went on more gently. "Oh, well, miss, my dear, do not fear me. I only do for your good. But there is much virtue to you in those so common flowers. See, I place them myself in your room. I make myself the wreath that you are to wear. But hush, no telling to others that make so inquisitive questions. We must obey, and silence is a part of obedience. And obedience is to bring you strong and well into loving arms that wait for you. Now sit still a while. Come with me, friend John, and you shall help me deck the room with my garlic, which is all the way from Haarlem, where my friend Vanderpool raised herb in his glass houses all the year. I had to telegraph him yesterday, or they would not have been here. I mean, I'm sure they have garlic in England. It's not France, but I'm positive that they have garlic in England. We went into the room, taking the flowers with us. The professor's actions were certainly odd and not to be found in any pharmacopoeia? Pharmacopoeia. Is that like a weird old way of saying pedia? Like a... whatever, moving on. That I ever heard of. First, he fastened up the windows and latched them securely. Next, taking a handful of the flowers, he rubbed them all over the sashes. Excuse me. As though to ensure that every whiff of the air might get in, would be laden with the garlic smell. Then, with the wisp he rubbed all over the jamb of the door, above, below, and at each side, and round the fireplace in the same way. It all seemed grotesque to me, and presently I said, "Well, Professor, I know you always have a reason for what you do, but this certainly puzzles me. It is well we have no skeptic here, or he would say that you are working some spell to keep out an evil spirit." "Perhaps I am," he answered quietly. "Perhaps I am." Not yelling, he answered quietly as he began to make the wreath which Lucy was to wear round her neck. Van Helsing is kind of a mean old codger, so when he has an exclamation mark, I assume he's just yelling like an old man. We then waited whilst Lucy made her toilet for the night, and when she was in bed, he came and himself fixed the wreath of garlic round her neck. The last words he said to her were, "Take care you do not disturb it, and even if the room feel close, do not tonight open the window or the door." "I promise," said Lucy, "and thank you both 1,000 times for your kindness to me. What would I have done to be blessed with such friends?" As we left the house in my fly... What? Is that like a carriage? I guess that's what a weird old way to call it. Whatever, moving on. Which was waiting, Van Helsing said, "Tonight, I can sleep in peace. And sleep I want. 2 nights of travel, much reading in the day between, and much anxiety on the day to follow, and a night to sit up without to wink. Tomorrow, in the morning early you call for me, and we come together to see our pretty miss. So much more strong for my spell which I have worked. Ho-ho!" His sentences are so awkward. He seemed so confident that I, remembering my own confidence 2 nights before, and with the baneful result, felt awe and vague terror. It must have been my weakness that made me hesitate to tell it to my friend, but I felt it all the more like unshed tears. I think that's going to be it for tonight because my throat is dying on me. Tomorrow, no bonus stream tomorrow, even though I said I would yesterday. I just need to rest and sleep off this flu vaccine I got. I am planning to stream more Pumpkin Jack on Saturday or Sunday, one of those days, but only one bonus stream this weekend for the same reason. I just need to rest up before work next week, so I'm not still feeling this crudiness from the vaccine. But that will be it for tonight. Hope everyone has a fantastic Friday. I will not see you tomorrow night, but I will see you either Saturday or Sunday. So take care, Fang Gang. Have a fantastic weekend.